What's good YouTube, Sensi FIFA here. This is my first video for FIFA 14 and it's just going to be a little tips video on how to set up your own custom tactics. I don't even think a lot of people use custom tactics, which is something that you should try doing because it does actually help out your game quite a lot. But if they do, they tend to just use kind of plug and play. They'll copy one off of YouTube or off a YouTube video or off a website or some such and just use that for all their teams, which can work, but really this video is going to be going into the rationale behind how to set up all your tactics. So what you're going to want to do is go into kickoff, and then from there choose any team and go to team management and down to custom tactics. Now the two things which really affect how you're going to set up your custom tactic is your formation and your style of play, and often those two things are linked anyway. If you're someone who likes doing fast counterattacks, for example, then you might be using one of the 4-3-3 variations. If you like slow build-up play, then you'll probably be using something like the 4-1-2-1-2, which does inherently lend itself towards that slow build-up play. Anyway, into the custom tactics, the first group of tactics is build-up play, which is how your team operates when it has the ball in the first 2/3 of the pitch. The first setting, speed, is basically just how willing your team are to pass the ball backwards, how slow they will set up their attacks basically. On the other end of the spectrum is fast, obviously good for a high aggressive, high counter-attacking play. You can see from the little video there that EA have put in. Since I am setting this up for a 4-1-2-1-2, which is my main online formation, I'm going to go with slow. I do find myself passing back to my centre-backs and wing-backs quite often when they are the only available pass. Then next comes passing, which is linked to speed. In Football Manager, for example, which I have played thousands of hours of, the general consensus is that you want to go slow and short or fast and long. Obviously, because if you're playing fast, a long ball is the fastest way to get the ball up the pitch, and so it works well for counter-attacking, and it also can work well for teams with tall strikers, since they can win the header and knock it down, and then you can play possession from there. Since I have gone slow, I am going to go with short. And then positioning, the two options are organised or freeform. And this very much depends on the formation that you're using. I don't like my CDM to move too much in the 4-1-2-1-2. I like him to sit there in the middle of the park, ready to distribute possession and to break up a counter-attack, for example. So I'm going to leave that unorganised. The next subset is chance creation, which is how your team operates with the ball in the final 2/3, and the first setting is passing, and that's, as you can see there, the amount of risk in pass decision and run support. So you can go safe, where players will move away from their markers and look to receive the pass, but probably not in advanced positions. And the other end of the spectrum is risky, where players will leave their positions, will make risky runs, and that's really up to you guys what you want to do there. It depends on how confident you are in your attackers basically. And since I've gone short, I'm gonna just go for a nice middle ground in normal. I do like players to make runs off the ball, and I'm confident in my 3 attackers, so I'll leave it at the high end of normal. Next up is crossing, and this will affect how your strikers operate inside the box, whether they run straight up to the goal to attempt to get a header. Personally, even though crossing is considered OP, I very rarely use it. I only use it if it's as a last resort, when it's my only decent option left. So I'm going to turn that on low. And shooting, kind of the opposite of crossing, will choose how your players will act around the box, whether they'll sit around the edge of the box and look to receive the ball to have a long shot. I'm going to leave that quite high because I do like taking my long shots, and also it does help with maintaining possession. And then positioning, the same as before, freeform or organised. Organised can be good because you know where your players are. You don't have to look at the mini-map every time to see a long pass, for example. You know that your left mid is going to be sitting around that position and your cam is going to be just behind the strikers. But since I am very confident in my attackers, I do quite like freeform. It will just let your strikers, for example, move out wide, and then one of your wide midfielders can come inside, or your cam and your striker might swap position, and it just leads to a more dynamic attack, basically. And I would recommend going with freeform if you do have good players in attack. The final subset is defense, and this I think is actually the most important one for online play. The 3 options on pressure, which is basically how high your defensive line is when it doesn't have the ball, basically, and or even when it does have the ball. I like to go with a high defensive line. The things that decide this are basically the speed of your defenders. I use fast defenders, so I'm happy for them to be pushed up high, and possession. If you're going on a counter-attack, then you can afford to go deep and still set up that counter-attack very easily. But for possession play, high defensive line is always good. It just gives you more players ready to receive the ball, basically. Next one, aggression, which is how your players will try and tackle the man on the ball. The first one is contain. Your player will move near him, but not go for the ball. Maybe we'll just cover a pass. The second one is press. The player will move near him and try and press him, basically go close to the ball and possibly win a tackle. And the third one is double. The two closest players will move towards him. So really with this one, double can be good, and it is good when you're when you're losing the game and you need to make a difference. But in general, against a good player, they can rip you apart when you're using double, because it will leave a lot of space for them to find that free pass. And yeah, so I generally go somewhere around the middle. At 50 there, I've gone right in the middle, as you can see. The final one is team width, which is how your team operates when they don't have the ball, how they move following the ball, basically. You can see from the little thing there. On narrow, if they're coming up the right, for example, your left back will push all the way across to kind of take that left centre back position. And what this means is, when they're coming up one certain flank, a lot more players will be there to block short passes and to pressure the guy on the ball, basically. But it's risky because it allows them to switch the play very easily. This one I tend to leave around the medium because I think it usually depends on the opposite team's formation. If they're playing a wide formation, then you want it on wide, for example. But if they're playing one straight through the centre, then you can afford to go narrow. But often I won't change these during the game, so I just leave it around the middle. The only time that I would change this is if I was using a 3 at the back formation. They're already weak to players switching the ball against them, so you don't want to go narrow in that situation. That will just make you even weaker to a switch. So I would go wide with a 3 at the back formation. And the final one is defender line. You can go offside trap or cover. And a lot of people are quite wary of using offside trap, but actually in FIFA 14 I've had great success with it, especially if you're using a high defensive line. That is something that you'll see a lot of teams do, play a high defensive line and the offside trap, and it works really well. And also, it's not too risky in FIFA 14. It's nowhere near as risky as it was last year, just because fast players are less fast when they're on the ball, and as long as you've got decently fast centre-backs, they will catch them up, especially because they're high up already. So if a through pass does get through, he's not going to be right in front of goal already. He's going to be near your halfway line, and you do have time to catch him up. So I have gone with the offside trap for this one. Then you're going to want to press square and save it to a slot, and then go down to quick tactics and assign it to one of these. You can see I've got 3 actually. Custom 1 Arsenal is how I start the game. Custom 2 Spurs is if I am behind and I need to chase the game. And obviously that's Spurs because they're often behind. And then Custom 3 Chelsea is when I'm ahead and I just want to park the bus. Good old Mourinho tactics. So I actually prefer using those two, ultra defensive or ultra attacking and those things. Those things, they feel kind of, I'm not sure if it's just mental, but when I go on ultra defensive, I often end up conceding a goal anyway. And then I think maybe if I hadn't gone on ultra defensive, I would have been better placed to deal with that. Or I could have even scored a goal on account of myself, for example. But hey, I suppose you could easily argue that using these is basically the same as using counter-attack or using ultra-attacking or ultra-defensive. I just feel like I have a little bit more control with these. I know how they're going to play, and I don't actually know what ultra-attacking or ultra-defensive does. It's obviously something similar. But anyway, guys, this is how to get them in. Minute the game starts, just press down, and then up is for slot 1, but down, and then whichever slot you've assigned it to, and that is how you get it going. And I would recommend doing it again at the start of the second half, just because sometimes I have noticed that it seems to possibly revert back to the original team tactics. Not always, but sometimes, so it's worth doing. Thought I'd leave in this quick Ibra goal at the start of a Division 1 match. And anyway, guys, if this has been helpful, then please do hit that subscribe button. More videos are coming soon, and I will see you guys next time.